Did you know that traveling from one end of Texas to the other is equivalent to driving through 7 different European countries? Interstate 10 alone stretches nearly 900 miles across Texas. That's 1/3 of the entire highway's length. Texas isn't just big, it's a geographical marvel that defies our usual understanding of distance. When Brownsville residents want to visit their fellow Texans in the northern panhandle, they're actually traveling almost halfway to Canada. Like crossing an entire continent in miniature, the Lone Star State creates its own geographical reality. Stay tuned as we uncover why Texas might be the most unexpected playground for geo-curiosity in America. Second Texas versus the world. Size comparisons that will shock you. When you look at Texas on a map of the United States, it's easy to underestimate just how massive this state truly is. Maps can be deceiving. They compress enormous distances into manageable visuals that our brains process without fully registering the scale. Numbers like 695,662 square kilometers sound impressive, but they're just abstract figures until we put them into perspective. Let's grasp the true enormity of Texas through some surprising comparison. If Texas were to declare independence tomorrow, which some Texans might not mind, it would immediately become the 40th largest country in the world, positioned between Zambia and Myanmar on global rankings. Texas outmeasures countries we typically think of as substantial. Ukraine with its vast agricultural lands, France with its diverse landscapes from the Alps to the Atlantic, Thailand with its sprawling reach across Southeast Asia, and even Spain, which dominates the Iberian Peninsula. Imagine overlaying Texas across Europe. The state would stretch from London to Warsaw, covering France, Germany, Switzerland, and several other countries simultaneously. You'd wake up in Paris for breakfast, drive through the German countryside for lunch, and still be in Texas when you reach Warsaw for dinner. This mental picture truly drives home the enormous scale of this single American state. Within American borders, consider Rhode Island, the smallest US state. You could fit Rhode Island inside Texas an astonishing 174 times. Picture 174 tiny puzzle pieces, each representing Rhode Island, arranged within Texas's borders. You could place a Rhode Island-sized piece of land in every corner of Texas and still have most of the state untouched. The sheer enormity of Texas creates practical challenges and fascinating geographical realities. Size isn't just about bragging rights, though Texans certainly enjoy those. It fundamentally shapes how the state functions and how its residents experience their home. Texas's size becomes truly mind-boggling when considering Interstate 10, which runs east-west across the southern portion of the state. It stretches for approximately 880 miles, about 1,420 kilometers, without ever leaving Texas. To put that distance in perspective, you could start driving in Greece, pass through Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Slovenia, and finally reach northern Italy, 7 entire European countries, in roughly the same distance it takes to drive across just one American state. This has real implications. Imagine being a state trooper patrolling that highway, a truck driver making deliveries across the state, or a family planning a road trip. The vastness creates logistical challenges that other states simply don't face. Texas officials making infrastructure decisions need to account for distances that would span multiple countries in other parts of the world. The size of Texas also creates cultural diversity within its borders. Eastern Texas, with its pine forests and proximity to Louisiana, feels culturally distinct from the desert landscapes of West Texas near El Paso. The subtropical climate of the Rio Grande Valley creates a different lifestyle than the wind-swept plains of the Panhandle. In many ways, Texas functions like several regions united under one flag, not unlike a small continent rather than just a state. When your state is closer to another country, those distinct regions of Texas aren't just culturally different, they're so far apart that the state's vastness warps your sense of space, as if time and distance were elastic. What if I told you some Texans live closer to other countries than to fellow residents of their own state? The continental scale of Texas creates geographic oddities that challenge our basic understanding of distance and proximity, turning what should be simple state relationships into fascinating paradoxes. Consider the reality faced by residents of El Paso in the western corner of Texas. The distances across their home state seem almost impossible. El Paso sits closer to Cheyenne, Wyoming, 735 miles away, than to Houston, 750 miles. Imagine driving through multiple states, reaching Wyoming's capital and still covering less distance than traveling to your own state's largest city. This geographic quirk completely disrupts our usual understanding of how state boundaries work. In another surprising twist, Brownsville residents in Texas's southernmost tip find El Naranjo in Guatemala just 736 miles away, closer than their fellow Texans living in Dalhart in the northern panhandle, 762 miles. Picture a Texan traveler who discovers they could cross international borders, travel through Mexico, and reach another country entirely in less time than it would take to visit people who share their state driver's license. Building on these paradoxes, the east-west span creates equally unexpected situations. A Beaumont resident near the Louisiana border could drive approximately 620 miles and reach the Atlantic Ocean in Jacksonville, Florida. Meanwhile, someone in El Paso would need the same distance, about 620 miles, to reach the Pacific in San Diego. Two Texans from opposite sides of their state could dip their toes in different oceans after identical travel times. These aren't just geographical curiosities, they create real challenges for state governance. The logistical complexity of coordinating emergency services across such vast distances is enormous. When disaster strikes, resources from one corner might take an entire day just to reach another region. Transportation planning becomes exponentially more difficult when communities are separated by distances that would span multiple states elsewhere in the country. Cultural cohesion faces similar obstacles. When communities are separated by hundreds of miles of highway, maintaining a unified identity becomes challenging. Local news stations can't cover the entire state in their broadcasts. School districts develop wildly different approaches based on regional needs. Even attending state conferences or government hearings becomes a multi-day journey for many residents. These distance paradoxes help explain one of the most fascinating chapters in Texas history: its time as an independent republic from 1836 to 1845. The massive territory created significant governance challenges that smaller nations simply don't face. The republic established its own currency while dealing with Comanche raids in the north and west, Mexican incursions from the south, and economic instability throughout its vast territory. The scale of Texas made protecting all borders virtually impossible. Communication between settlements took days or weeks, and establishing consistent governance required extraordinary measures. These same geographic realities continue to shape Texas's relationship with the federal government today. The state maintains a fiercely independent spirit, partly because its size creates practical separation from centralized control. When distances within your own state rival international travel, it fundamentally changes how you view your place in the world. For many Texans, major cities in neighboring states or even other countries might be more accessible than their own state capital. A resident of Texarkana might find it more practical to visit Little Rock, Arkansas than Austin. Someone in El Paso might have stronger connections to New Mexico or northern Mexico than to East Texas. Texas's astonishing ecological diversity. The vast distances that stretch across Texas create environmental boundaries that few other states can match. Texas harbors a geographical secret hiding in plain sight. Beneath that iconic silhouette lies not one landscape but 11 distinct ecological worlds. From snow-dusted mountains to sun-soaked coastlines, Texas contains more biodiversity than almost any other state in America. A continent's worth of environments all contained within a single border. Texas is among only 4 states in the entire country to contain more than 10 distinct ecoregions. These 11 ecological zones transform the state into a natural wonderland where you can experience completely different worlds in a single day's drive. The humid, piney woods in the east create dense forests that feel more like Louisiana than the Texas of popular imagination. Meanwhile, the arid Trans-Pecos region hosts mountains and deserts that would look right at home in New Mexico or Arizona. This ecological diversity means Texans can experience entirely different seasons simultaneously. Picture this: on the same January day, residents of Amarillo might be shoveling snow from their driveways, while families 600 miles south are building sandcastles on Galveston's sun-warmed beaches. Texas functions like a natural museum where each region displays its own unique exhibit of landscapes and wildlife. The contrast between regions can be startling. Take the journey from Big Bend National Park to the bayous of East Texas. You'd swear you've traveled between continents rather than within the same state. Big Bend's rugged desert mountains rise dramatically from the Chihuahuan desert floor, creating an environment so diverse it rivals Yellowstone in biodiversity. The park hosts over 1,200 plant species and serves as home to mountain lions and black bears, wildlife you might not associate with Texas. Drive east for several hours and you'll find yourself in a completely different world. The lush, humid bayous where cypress trees draped in Spanish moss stand sentinel over slow-moving waters. These swampy ecosystems feel transplanted from Louisiana, yet they're just as authentically Texan as the western deserts. The Texas coast adds another dimension to this ecological tapestry. Here you'll find Padre Island, confirmed to be the longest barrier island in the world at 113 miles. This narrow strip of land creates protected lagoons and estuaries that serve as critical nurseries for marine life. The island's pristine beaches and dunes form an essential ecosystem all their own. What makes Texas unique isn't just having these different environments, it's having them all within driving distance of each other. In most parts of the world, you'd need to cross multiple national borders to experience such varied landscapes. In Texas, you just need a full tank of gas and a sense of adventure. The state's environmental diversity extends beyond what's visible on the surface. Texas hides thousands of underground wonders. The varied geology has produced over 3,000 documented caves throughout the state. Major cave systems like Frio Cave, Longhorn Cavern, and Natural Bridge Caverns invite spelunking enthusiasts to explore limestone labyrinths formed over millions of years. These caves, particularly concentrated in the Edwards Plateau region, represent yet another ecological zone, one hidden from view but teeming with unique life forms adapted to permanent darkness. Blind salamanders, translucent shrimp, and specialized insects have evolved in isolation within these caverns. This diversity creates a unique relationship between Texans and their land. The state's natural beauty isn't concentrated in a single signature feature or region. It's distributed across environments so different they seem to belong to separate continents. This environmental diversity in Texas doesn't just create stunning landscapes. It generates a meteorological battleground where competing climate systems collide with dramatic consequences. When you consider that Texas sits precisely where Gulf moisture, desert heat, and Arctic cold fronts regularly meet, you begin to understand why weather isn't just a conversation starter here. It fundamentally shapes regional identities and daily life across the state. The climate of Texas defies simple classification. With 11 distinct ecoregions comes an equally diverse weather pattern that few other states can match. In East Texas, humid subtropical conditions bring abundant rainfall and sticky summers from Gulf moisture. Travel westward and the landscape transforms into arid desert where rainfall becomes precious, and temperatures soar during daylight hours, then plummet after sunset. Texas weather is defined by its extremes within astonishingly short time frames. The Panhandle experiences some of the most dramatic temperature fluctuations in the country. The mercury can swing by 40 degrees Fahrenheit in a single day. For farmers and commuters alike, this volatility means constant adaptation. Imagine leaving for work in a t-shirt and returning home needing a heavy winter coat. That's a regular occurrence for Panhandle residents, especially during transitional seasons when competing air masses battle for dominance. These wild swings occur because Texas occupies a unique geographical position vulnerable to multiple weather systems. The warm Gulf of Mexico pumps in tropical moisture from the south and east. Hot, dry desert air flows from the west. Arctic cold fronts sweep down from the north across the plains with little resistance. When these systems collide, which happens with remarkable frequency, the results are explosive. This battleground creates ideal conditions for severe weather. Texas thunderstorms aren't just rain events. They're spectacular displays of nature's raw power, with lightning illuminating vast skies for miles. The atmospheric clashes have a darker side too. Texas averages 139 tornadoes annually, with peak season during spring. April through June are particularly active when conditions align perfectly for these destructive vortices. The tornado frequency places much of Texas within Tornado Alley, though the boundaries of this region remain fluid and debated. What's not debatable is the impact. Communities have adapted with early warning systems, storm shelters, and a heightened awareness when storm clouds gather on the horizon. Texas's enormous geographic footprint creates distinct microclimates that shape entire economies and ways of life. The Rio Grande Valley's mild climate allows tropical fruits to flourish, supporting a vibrant agricultural industry specializing in citrus and other crops that would wither elsewhere in the state. Meanwhile, in arid western regions, ranchers have adapted through drought-resistant cattle breeds and sustainable grazing practices maximizing limited water resources. These regional climate differences require specialized agricultural approaches. What works for farmers in the Blackland prairies of north-central Texas would be disastrous in the high plains or Gulf Gulf Coast. Growing seasons vary dramatically from the extended warm periods of South Texas to the shorter, volatile windows in the Panhandle. This climate-driven agricultural diversity contributes to Texas's position as an agricultural powerhouse, producing everything from cotton and cattle to wine grapes and winter vegetables. For residents, climate diversity creates strong regional weather identities. East Texans develop resilience through humid summers and thunderstorm seasons. West Texans form stoic relationships with drought and dust. Coastal communities maintain hurricane preparedness as a way of life. These shared weather experiences forge community bonds and contribute to regional cultures as varied as the landscapes themselves. Geographical features that defy expectations. Those regional weather identities aren't the only things that make Texas special. Beneath those endless skies lie geographical treasures that even lifelong residents might never discover. When you picture Texas, you probably imagine wide open plains and dusty landscapes. But what if I told you that hidden within this massive state are natural wonders so unexpected they seem to belong to another continent entirely? Take Guadalupe Peak, for example. Rising dramatically from the surrounding plains, this mountain stands at an impressive 8,751 feet above sea level, making it the highest point in Texas. That's nearly 2 miles up. As you ascend through changing ecosystems, the flat Texas of your imagination transforms into rugged alpine terrain reminiscent of Colorado. Native American tribes once considered these mountains sacred ground, using the peak as a landmark for centuries. From the summit, the view stretches for over 100 miles across 3 states and into Mexico, revealing the vastness of this landscape. Moving from towering peaks to ancient canyons, Palo Duro carves a massive 120-mile gash through the high plains. This colorful wonderland of red rock formations rivals Arizona's Grand Canyon. As the second largest canyon system in the United States, its walls drop as much as 1,000 feet and stretch up to 20 miles wide in places. Apache and Comanche tribes once found shelter within these protective walls, yet somehow this massive natural wonder remains relatively unknown to many Americans who've never ventured into the Texas Panhandle. Traveling southward near Fredericksburg sits one of the state's most peculiar features, Enchanted Rock. This massive pink granite dome creates eerie cracking sounds as it expands and contracts with temperature changes. Indigenous cultures believe these sounds were the cries of fallen warriors trapped within the stone, giving the formation its mystical name. After rainfall, vernal pools form in depressions atop the rock, creating temporary habitats for rare fairy shrimp, tiny crustaceans that exist nowhere else in the region. Perhaps the most scientifically intriguing of Texas's wonders are the lost pines of Bastrop. These loblolly pines stand approximately 100 miles away from their nearest genetic relatives in East Texas's piney woods. Scientists believe these trees are relics from the last ice age, when pine forests stretched across much more of Texas. As the climate warmed, most pines retreated eastward, but this particular stand found a microclimate suitable for survival, becoming a living time capsule of Texas's ancient ecological past. What makes these geographical anomalies remarkable is how thoroughly they contradict what most Americans think they know about Texas. The state conjures images of flat, dusty plains in our collective imagination, yet the reality includes everything from soaring mountains to deep canyons, ancient rock formations to isolated forests that defy scientific explanation. Even Texans themselves often don't realize the full extent of their state's geographical diversity. A resident of Houston might live their entire life without experiencing the stark beauty of Guadalupe Peak. Someone from Dallas might never witness the sunset painting Palo Duro's walls with fiery colors. The sheer size of Texas doesn't just create distance, it creates separate worlds within a single state border. While mountains rising almost 9,000 feet certainly challenge expectations, many find it equally shocking that Texas boasts 367 miles of coastline along the Gulf of Mexico. This includes the pristine stretches of Padre Island National Seashore, where wild horses roam free along undeveloped beaches. The contrast between the rugged mountains of West Texas and the tropical feel of the state's coastal regions couldn't be more stark, yet both exist within the same political boundaries. As our journey through Texas's geographic wonders concludes, we've seen how 11 distinct ecoregions shape the land and identity of the Lone Star State. This diversity influences everything from economic development to political divisions, with urban centers driving innovation, while rural communities preserve agricultural traditions. This geographic tapestry creates a cultural mosaic where East Texans might share more with Louisianans than with fellow Texans in El Paso. Which of these diverse regions has changed your perception of Texas? As you view the state on a map, remember you're seeing a geographical marvel where distance and diversity foster that fiercely independent spirit, truly a country within a country, standing distinctive in the American landscape.